Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. My wife has lots of old pieces of jewelry, some sterling, some other stuff, and occasionally something will be broken, or she doesn't wear it anymore, or she's lost an earring. And so I thought I would repurpose one of those things by adding stuff to it and maybe throwing a stone on one. And so I rifled through some of her stuff and picked out this little filigree earring that's kind of nice, but it's missing its alternate. So we'll make a pendant out of it and add some embellishments to it. I'm going to add a little frame around it, add a little bezel set round faceted amethyst, a little tiny one. And I think it should come out looking kind of Art Deco, so we'll see how it turns out. But it should be a fun experiment. It's kind of nice to be able to repurpose something that's not serving any purpose anymore. So let's get started. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks. This particular one has some flow temperatures of different types of solder on it. The various types on my merch store have all different information about metalsmithing. Conversion charts between metric and standard and fractions of an inch, gauges to measurement units, all sorts of different stuff. So I find the biggest feature for me though is the ability to be able to keep track of the projects I'm working on. Because then I have a record of it, how I did it, and I can go back and look at it again if I want to see how I did it, if I want to revisit that. And I would recommend getting one or two of these. This is the earring that I was talking about. It's kind of a little filigree, but some very delicate filigree. Filigree is different from open pierce work if you're new to this. Filigree is little fine twisted wire, super fine wire, all soldered into place in intricate details. It's pretty delicate work. Pierce work can look similar, but that's where you're cutting out pieces out of a sheet to create kind of an intricate look. So, but this is filigree. And what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to take this ear wire off of here, and I'm going to build a frame that this will hang in the middle of, and I'm going to put a little, this little 3.5 millimeter amethyst right here in a bezel. And I have a bail that I made for a bail making. You know, I do videos periodically showing how to make some different kinds of bails, and this was one of them, and it was kind of an Art Deco-y looking one. And so I thought I'd use this as the bail for this, since I think it kind of looks Art Deco-y. So we'll see how that goes. I think it should be a fun project. Sometimes it's fun to make something new out of something old. So let's start by taking this off, and then maybe we'll make a little bezel for that stone. I'm going to use 28 gauge fine silver bezel strip. This started out as 3/16 inch tall, but it's probably about, I cut it down a little more than an eighth maybe. So it's, I don't know, 2.5 millimeters tall roughly now. Just to save myself some filing, because this is a pretty small stone. So let's get this filed flat and make a little bezel. If you've not been to my channel before, here's some information about my torch, solder, and my flux and everything. I think while this particular project might turn out nice, I guess we'll find out. The idea here, though, is mostly to think outside of the box and maybe try and repurpose some of your old stuff that doesn't get used anymore for whatever reason. Make something fresh and new out of it. If you like this one, she's got quite a few things that I can tap into to try and remake. I was thinking that she has this costume jewelry chain that was made out of, I thought it was copper. It had interesting shaped links, and I was going to cut that up and make something out of it. But when I filed into it, I found out it wasn't actually copper. So it was something copper plated, but I don't know what it was. So I decided against using that one this time. For this bezel, since it's a faceted stone, we're going to put a little step in it, and I'll probably make that out of 18 gauge round wire. And that's just so that the light can get to the back of the stone from the back, and also to create a platform for that. Since faceted stones don't have flat bottoms generally, they have kind of a pointy bottom. So we'll solder this together and put a little ring in there for it to sit on. Bezels don't have a heck of a lot of metal in them, so it doesn't take very long to solder them, especially a little tiny one like this. So if you're new to this and you're melting a lot of bezels, that's normal for a beginner. Just roll with it, it gets easier. The more you do, the fewer you'll melt. Because you'll start to get the hang of where you heat and how long you heat and all that kind of stuff. I still on occasion melt a bezel. I'm not very focused. See how fast that flowed though? It doesn't take long at all. And this is hard silver solder, so it's got the highest melting temperature. Okay, spend a little time reshaping this. I think we did okay on size there, I think. Okay, let me see if I can find a little bit of 18 gauge round. Whoa, looky there, there's a little bit. So we need to make a little ring that fits right in there. So if I make a spring and I kind of overlap it like that a little bit, that allows me to make it bigger or smaller until I get it just about right. That's close. I generally cut these a little bit bigger than I think I need and then snip pieces out until they fit in there perfectly. That goes in, but it's kind of trying to ride up one side. If I can get it to sit flat, that's fine. If I can't, I'll need to snip a little bit more off. People would say, look at Chad's cockeyed stone. I don't want to buy any jewelry from him. I think that'll work. I think I'm going to grab this little bit of solder right here. It's actually a pretty good sized chunk. And let's flux this and I'll set that right on top of that and then we'll heat the bezel. It should just draw it right up in there. So far so good, I think. Let's file the bottom flat. You kind of see the bottom is relatively flat now. So this is going to be here. This is going to be here. I noticed that on this bail that I have a ring facing in the wrong direction. And if I want this to be kind of close together, I may snip that off and solder a ring going this direction, like vertically, when we get closer to the end there. Okay, so what I'm going to make these side pieces out of that are kind of this frame, this is 14 gauge square wire. I like to flatten it out sometimes because it maintains the strength of thicker wire, but it gives you a narrower profile to the front, so I kind of like doing that a lot. I think what I'll probably do, so I've got basically two pieces here. I've got the outer one here that cuts across the inner one, like that, and then this inner one here that'll be holding the stone. And I'll rig up some jump ring stuff up here to make this all connect, but I want to try and get these as symmetrical as I can. And so let's start with this outside one, and I'm going to get a rough estimate of how much this I need. I'm estimating higher than I actually need. So I think that should be enough. I'm going to add just a little bit more just for good measure. I'd rather have too much than not enough. I'm going to try and make sure it's all on the same plane this way as well. This is the other axis. That should be the middle. We'll see. Okay, so we use that as a starting point. And in order to get this sharp of a bend, where it comes to a nice point, I'm going to file part of the way through there from the side so that it makes it easier to bend right in that spot. So we'll try and get it started kind of right in the middle of that. Since I want a pretty steep angle, I could do just a 45 and that'll make for an easy 90-degree bend. But I want it to spread further out on the angle here so that I can bend it more sharply. I got a pretty steep angle there. So now I think our best bet to prevent that from breaking or anything, and to keep it at the same angle, let's solder that closed so it's a permanent bend. And then after that we can even file it down to a sharper point if we want to. But let's get it closed and then we can work on these other bends. We had a little snow today after an extended period of way early spring. That's kind of a strange change. Strange change. Don't believe the cold weather's going to stick around for very long now. Okay, so I do something called pick soldering. I pick up a bit of solder on the end of this titanium pick. And if you're interested in learning how to do that, I find it's one of the most useful skills I've learned over the time I've been metalsmithing, as far as making it easier to get solder where you want it to go in just the right amount. And so if you're interested, I'll put a link right up there. It's a pretty good video that gives you the basics of it. I also have a couple of videos if you look in my playlist. You'll find some that are kind of practice pick soldering. It's one of those things that once you master it, it really makes things a lot easier. So now I want a nice natural curve there, kind of, to go along here and here. So let's see what we can do. Since I freehand drew this, I'm going to use one side to measure here. That way I should get it pretty close to the same distance. Okay, so now I'm going to file them again so that I can bend them this way. We'll see how close we can get that. I think I'm going to solder that. So we're just going to solder those two again. So we're getting close to 30,000 subscribers. That's amazing. So if you got any friends who might be interested in subscribing to my channel, you should tell them about my channel. Invite them to the party. Together we will conquer the internet. Or check out my Patreon where you can meet some of the nice people over there. I've got such a nice group of patrons. they give me a swollen ego because they think I'm awesome. Okay, so that's one of them. Let's do another piece. Let's just take the rest of this here, do it in half like we did before, and we'll play it by ear from there. I kind of estimated when I cut a longer piece of square wire to do this with, so I hope I cut a long enough piece. Okay, let's repeat that process. If you find it's easier to brace against things when you file, that's fine. I just kind of do it this way most of the time, unless I really need a super accurate surface. I may have to play with the geometry just a little bit to get this to work. The lines I drew were skinnier than the wires that I'm using. I could redraw it, or I could just kind of compensate. Hopefully not overcompensate. If I was going to do that, I'd buy a sports car. I think I like it layered like that. I was thinking about, insetting them in each other, but I may just do one on top of the other. It gives it some depth. The question is, would it be better to have this one on top or the other one on top? I think that's going to work out okay. That'll give it some nice movement. I think I like the narrower one on top. So I'm going to solder these closed because they're pretty close, I think. Okay, I want this to sit up just a little bit so that I have plenty of room to use to have bezel to go over the stone there. And so I think what I'll do, oops, send my bezel flying across the table. So I'm actually going to push this down into the pad just a little bit. This is a magnesia block, which is kind of a soft surface. So I want that to stick out just a little bit. Kind of like that. So I have some solder there. We can just pick solder it right on there probably. This is one of those times, if you're new to this, where it seems counterintuitive to heat the entire piece because all that stuff is way up there. I'm just trying to solder down here. But with silver, you gotta get the entire piece up to the flow temperature of the solder, which doesn't always instinctually happen. You have to kind of train yourself to do that. So that's one of the reasons people, it's another one of the reasons people melt some things at the beginning, which is normal. So don't be too hard on yourself about stuff like that when you're learning. Even after you've learned, everybody makes mistakes. It just happens. Okay. I can get it kind of like that, that's pretty cool. I think this side needs to come in just a skosh. I'm going to neaten this up here with my rotary tool. I'll be right back. That's probably as close as I'm going to get. So I want to solder this all together, but I don't want to drop that bezel off of there. So I'm going to try and find something to put underneath it to support it. Maybe a little piece of broken pan or something. Sometimes that works. You could, if you're worried about it, use a different kind of solder for this, but that's why I supported that thing so it wouldn't fall off. We'll see how good a soldering wood can do tonight. I had a little slump on my bezel there. I had to push it back in. Nobody wants that embarrassing bezel slump. So for now, I'm going to cut these off right at the top of this. Cut together. So we decide how to attach this bail and everything. Okay, so I think I'm going to put a jump ring right in the middle of that up there. And then we'll hook another one through to hook this thing on. So for this one, I'm going to use a little bit of medium paste solder just because I'm getting towards the end and I don't want to drop that bezel off. I could probably do it with hard, but you know, when you start to get tired, you make mistakes. I think I got one side. I don't think I got the other side. Okay, so let's modify this little bail. Let me make a little jump ring. I'm also going to solder this with the open side upwards. That way I can solder with some easy solder around this afterwards. I think for this piece, after I get this bale soldered on, I think I'm going to keep them separate until the end, and then I'm going to use a little bit of 18 gauge. And I probably won't solder this one closed. That way you can take it out and polish it if you need to. See if I got that on there straight or not. I think that'll actually work out pretty well. Let's push it into this thing so we don't screw anything up. That should be alright, it's not touching anything. Use a little bit of easy for that last one. Well, still moving. That's a good sign. So let's get all that stuff cleaned up in the pickle, polished, and then we'll set that stone at the end. Okay, got things polished up. I'm going to go ahead and set this stone. I think I got it kind of sit where the height it needs to be. I do this a little differently than some. I use my chain nose pliers to burnish stuff. I'll likely clean the top of that bezel off with a blue silicone polishing wheel. But for this piece, I took a little 20 gauge jump ring that I made. And I think that's kind of what we were shooting for. End up looking like that. That's pretty much what I kind of had in mind. So I'll get that, finished up and get some pictures taken. Tell me what you think. Tell me about some things you might consider modifying into something else. I think everybody's got a few lost earrings or pieces that they're not quite sure what to do with because they liked them or aspects of them but don't wear them anymore or whatever. So, all right. Okay, well that was repurposing an old earring missing its partner. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, it would make me super happy if you'd hit the like button before you left. And I'd also love it if you'd go visit my main channel page over on YouTube and check out some of the other videos I have. I have over 600 now. And I do 3 per week, so there's a constant stream of all sorts of good information and project ideas coming out of my channel. So you should definitely check those out, watch a few. Maybe subscribe to my channel. It doesn't cost anything, and I think you'll find that it's a valuable place to visit. So before we leave, though, I wanted to thank some people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and I could not do this without their support. Not only do they provide me with a significant financial contribution by being members over there, they've created this lovely community of artistic people who have really good ideas, and we all have different resources we can share with each other. It's a nice place. So I wanted to thank them not only for the financial support, but for making it such a cool place. So thank you guys. My other group are my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 27,900. We're almost to 28,000, which blows my mind. Thank you for that. Thanks for the lovely comments, sharing your stories, you know, the things that you do differently than me. I always like to hear other people's ideas and techniques because I learn stuff from it. Thank you also for the financial support, the Buy Me a Coffees, the super thanks, buying my merch off of my merch store, the various ebooks that I've made so far about silversmithing. So thanks for doing that. That really helps a lot. Before you go, you might want to visit the video description down below. There's information about this video, but there's also some important links. There's a link to Patreon if you want to check that out. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks I told you about at the beginning, or some other merch. There's some other things there too as well. Or finally, there's a link to my newest ebook, which is a guide to 2025's tutorials. I did roughly 170 to 180, I don't remember exactly how many, last year. And the ebook has a link to each of those, and on each link page there's information about that video, including a picture of the sketch that I drew prior to doing the project, the final outcome of the project, a list of materials that it takes to make that project. If it has a stone in it, it has information about the stone or stones, a difficulty rating, and some notes I took about the project. Things like, did I learn something from it? Because I almost always do when I do something new. Did I like the outcome? Would I do it differently if I was to do it again? So it's kind of a nice way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a really nice way to support my channel. So you can even get the 3 years that I've done that for, 2023, 2024, and 2025 as a package deal. If you buy those together, you get it for $15 off. It might be a great idea to do it that way and save yourself a little money too. So, all right, well, thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.